Hi everyone, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about my interior design mistakes. These are the mistakes that I have made over the years that I have learned from, and maybe you can learn from them too. Now, some of you might see yourself in some of these mistakes and thinking, I don't really consider that a mistake. I do that all the time. In which case, just a reminder, these are my mistakes, not necessarily your mistakes. Also, just a reminder that all timestamps and description links and product links and whatever are down in the description box down below. And now first, let's hear from our sponsor for this video, which is Audible. Okay, so today's sponsor of this video is Audible. Now, I personally love audiobooks because I find them to be so much more convenient for when I'm driving, when I'm cooking. I also love them when I'm on the beach. You know, reading a book is just really uncomfortable and annoying when you're on a beach. Pop in an audiobook, you're good to go. So I wanted to provide to you today my favorite audiobook that I am loving on Audible, and that is Bad Blood: Secrets and Lies of a Silicon Valley Startup by John Carreyrou. If you're not familiar with the story, buckle in, it's a doozy. It is about Elizabeth Holmes and that story of Theranos where I don't want to get sued. She can't sue me. Like, I think it's been proven. She basically made this whole thing up. They had this transformative medical technology. It's absolutely gripping. It tells the whole story of John Carreyrou being an investigative journalist for the Wall Street Journal and just uncovering this whole mess of lies. And it was absolutely gripping, and I loved every minute of it. If you're interested in getting a 30-day free trial for Audible, you can sign up at audible.com/NickLewis, or you could text Nick Lewis to 500-500, and you can sign up today for Audible. So thanks again for sponsoring this video. Okay, design mistake number one that I have made is buying everything from a big box store. So in the past, I have done this usually out of convenience. You know, big box stores do a really awesome job of sort of kind of putting the training wheels on you a little bit. So to sort of make it easier for you to sort of put everything together, because there's already a really talented group of designers that have put everything together, and you know that it works really cohesively and it just works really well together. So I'm including places, yes, like Target and IKEA, but also places like West Elm and Crate and Barrel. And so kind of Nick from the past, oftentimes would just sort of go to these big box retailers and buy the furniture that I really loved, oftentimes from the same furniture family, so that it was a lot easier to sort of put things together. And over time, what I have learned is to incorporate pieces that are maybe a little bit more handcrafted, a little bit more from sort of a smaller boutique, or a little bit harder to find, a little bit more unique, and kind of have a unique experience or a story behind them. And that's something that I have learned. So yes, it's no secret on this channel that I will oftentimes talk about big box stores like IKEA and Target and whatever. And I do that because I want to make it really relevant to all of you. You're a very wide audience from all around the world, and I want to make sure that you sort of see yourself in different things that I talk about on this channel. And that's why I talk a lot about big box stores. But let's not forget that there's beautiful, wonderful artisans all around the world that are creating really wonderful products that we can bring into our home. And I think it's really important to bring those in, and just to really bring in some of those kind of handcrafted pieces that just sort of make your space feel a little bit more special and a little bit more unique than just everything being bought from the same big box store. An example that I just found really recently is a company called Barter Design, which is based actually in the Sunshine Coast, which is just off of Vancouver. And it's one of my favorite places in the entire world. I love the Sunshine Coast. And this place makes gorgeous furniture pieces. Look how beautiful this like whitewashed wood for these stools are. Absolutely amazing. You've got this natural, you've got this in this gorgeous smoked wood. Overall, just really, really beautiful pieces. And you can tell that the people have really taken the time and the intention to create something really gorgeous and unique. And I'm not saying you can't buy anything from a big box store, but I'm just saying incorporating some of these wonderful little beautiful pieces along the way just makes your place feel a lot more special. And that's something I've learned over the long term. Okay, so interior design mistake number two that I have made, and that is dark countertops. Okay, so this might be controversial. Some people might not agree with me on this, and that is totally okay. That's fine. Here's the deal with dark countertops. They can look elegant, they can look beautiful, they can look absolutely classy, but I think when you go really dark, whether it's like a dark granite or you go for a black countertop, it can look really, really sexy at first, but just so you know, it can be a real nightmare to clean. I just find like crumbs and fingerprints and any sort of food particles that just sort of get left on your counter. When you have a medium to light tone in your countertops, so let's say you've got like a really nice white quartz or whatever, it's really obvious when all those things are on your countertops. Like, it's really obvious, you can clean it up and move on, and you always know when your countertops are clean because they always look really clean and fresh. But when you have really dark countertops, you kind of get lost into a sense of comfort that your space is cleaner than it is. It's not until I really notice it that there can be little sort of spots of oil or dust or crumbs or whatever. In my opinion, they never look clean and they're just kind of an absolute nightmare to work with. I know some people are going to say, I love my dark granite countertops, and good for you, but I have just found it's not that I'm not clean, it's just that I find that there's just always stuff on there and you can never see it. And sometimes when you just catch it at the right angle or the sun is sort of coming through your window at just the right moment, it can look absolutely so dirty. So, okay, the third mistake that I have made is not adding enough personality into my space, not having it really reflect me or my partner Mike, and just sort of having your space look a little bit generic. I'll tell you this, I'm not a sentimental person. So when someone says, you know, hey, do you want your grandma's old teapot and you can sort of display it, that's not really the vibe that I have going on in my place. That's not really something that I like. But I think for a long time, I actively resisted putting anything personal or sentimental in my space. If there was photographs of family or friends, I didn't put them in my space. If there was something passed down to me, not really about it. But I have learned over time to incorporate things that have a little bit more of a story to them or have a bit more of a personal connection to Mike and I. So if you're like me and you're not a particularly sentimental person, or you don't really like a lot of really traditional things, there are different ways that you can incorporate meaningful items into your space without necessarily going for something really vintage or something that's passed down. But you can do that as well. So if you're into that, then that's great. But for me, I like to look at it as there's buying really beautiful pieces that I love, but have a little bit more of a story to them. So for example, that pendant that's over on top of my dining room table. So that light I actually purchased with Mike and a few other friends when I was on the Sunshine Coast, same places I just talked about earlier. And we were actually over there for a friend's wedding. And we went shopping and went to this really small little boutique, and there was this really beautiful pendant. There it is, you can see it. And it really fit with our style. It was a little bit geometric and it was really beautiful. But that to me always has a little bit of a story. I always remember when I bought it. I always remember who I was with and why we were there. And so even though it maybe isn't as sentimental as what some other people bring into their home, it's still something that means something to me. So I would say a mistake that I did was not bringing in enough sort of sentimental personal pieces into my home and just sort of making the space look like anybody could have lived there. Okay, design mistake number 4 that I have made is not having enough storage solutions. So time and time again, I have bought items that maybe didn't have any storage capacity to them, or they looked really pretty but weren't necessarily really functional, or they offered no ability to actually store items. And this is something that a lot of people don't really consider because they look for items that look really good, but they forget that you have to actually live there. And sometimes it's really nice to have little compartments for you to hide all your crap. So for example, you may find a gorgeous bed and it may be beautiful, but if it's really low to the ground, you've kind of eliminated a really awesome place to store a bunch of stuff. That's where I put all my Christmas decorations, is under that bed. So I can't have a low bed. So mistakes that I've made is bringing in really nice, beautiful items, but had no storage potential whatsoever, instead of going for something that maybe was a little bit different, but opened up a whole bunch of possibilities for how to store items. Because remember, you have to live in your home and you're hopefully going to be living there for quite a while, and stuff happens, you know, like stuff gets into your space, papers, packaging, random stuff that you pick up, things that are gifted to you, all this stuff. Yes, of course, we all like to think that we're minimalists and we're just going to get rid of all that stuff, but real life sets in. So you're going to have to find space for stuff that you use or stuff that you don't, that you just hang around for too long, because we all have that type of stuff, and you're going to have to find places to store them. And I find mistakes I've made in the past is not considering where I'm going to store my stuff long term, and then everything just ends up being a big giant mess and my place looks really cluttered and really busy. So now when I'm buying new pieces of furniture or I'm designing my place in the Okanagan, and as you guys know, I'm in the process of designing that right now, I'm considering a lot of space for storage. Storage is underrated. People don't talk about it enough because it's not a sexy subject, but you need to consider storage. Take it from me, learn from my mistake. Okay, and mistake number 5 that I have made is buying a television that is too big for the room. Okay, so yes, we talked about function, and you should consider how you're going to be using your television. So yes, okay, if you like video games or you like sports or you like movies and you want to be able to, you know, watch them on the really big screen, I totally understand that. But your TV needs to fit the room that you have, not the room that you want. I have made this mistake. I have lived in really small apartments up into reasonable size apartments for about like 15 years now. And I know what it's like to want the really big television, but feel like your apartment just isn't big enough for it. And you sort of push the limits of the TV that you need for the space that you have. And I gotta say, it is a mistake that many of us have made, but honestly, you will benefit over the long term over getting the TV that is the right size for your space. It's so common to get a TV that is just absolutely gonna overwhelm your space. It's gonna become this huge black box on the wall. It's usually not really very attractive, and it tends to really overwhelm the space. So yes, get a large television if you want. Get a television that is on the upper limits of what you can probably budget if that's something that you're really into. But I would just be really careful over getting a television that is way too big. This, by the way, also means not getting a television that's too small, but in my experience in 2021, that's not really an issue. No one's really getting TVs that are too small. I find the opposite is true. Everybody wants to get kind of a 65 or a 75-inch television, which is absolutely massive. But if you live in a 500 square foot apartment, it's gonna look a little bit silly. Okay, that's it for me, you guys. I'm gonna link here to my other video called Top 5 Items that I made that I regret buying. It's similar to this video, but it focuses a little bit more on items rather than necessarily design mistakes that I made. So I will see you all in that video. Thanks a lot, bye.